Hello and welcome to the Publisher Podcast from Media Voices. I'm Esther Thorpe and this is the latest in a series of sessions from the Publisher Summits, which we held in mid-June. The summits covered 4 product areas across 2 days in London, from newsletters and print to apps and podcasts, featuring speakers from The Economist and the FT to Reach, National World, Grazia and more. Huge thanks to the sponsors of the Publisher Podcast Summit, Crowdfinder Video and Sino. You can find out more about them and how they help publishers take their podcasts to the next level at publishersummits.com. This episode features a session on how publishers can build communities through podcasting. Peter Houston interviews Countryfile magazine Plodcast's Fergus and Women's Running's Esther Newman about bringing podcast listeners into a community, one where they can not only communicate with you, but also build connections with each other. Just to note, huge apologies again for the quality of the audio. We had a bit of a nightmare with the venue recording through the sound desks, so we had to, at the very last minute, capture what we could of the podcast stage on a phone. But we were also under Vauxhall Station, so you may occasionally hear trains go over, which again complicates the sound. And I know how frustrating it is to have crappy audio for a podcast, but we've done our best to make the sessions as audible as possible for this one. Peter has also written up the highlights from this episode in an article that'll be live on our website and on the Publisher newsletter on Tuesday. You can find both of those on our website at voices.media. But for now, here are Fergus and Esther introducing themselves, interviewed on stage by Peter.
Hello, I'm Fergus. I'm the creator and host of the Plodcast, which is the BBC Countryfile magazine podcast. It's a weekly adventure into nature, the countryside, and it's always recorded, the main episodes are recorded outside, which has its own challenges. So sometimes it's me walking alone in the countryside, describing what I'm finding, one of my few skills I can understand birdsong, and identify birds and other wildlife. So I can take people on journeys. I also take guests with me, and so we're immersing the weather, and public transport, and all sorts of. So it's not a studio-based podcast. And I sort of discovered, well, I used to be editor of BBC Countryfile magazine, and that was all about calls to action, everything we did at print, digital, Newman. But the podcast is the action. And so we're taking listeners, some of them are readers, some of them are website visitors, taking them on an experience into the countryside and immersing them in. And they're coming to the podcast because they want to see, they want to find a safe haven, they want to enjoy with me and guests from sort of all sorts of folk, from rock product bar to sort of obscure next door neighbours who were interested in nature and talk about for all. And that's growing this group of people who I want to take them on a walk with me and my guests and share the joy of nature that I get and all those feeling elements of nature now. As I say, just pure joy of being outside. So, for taking this group of people, these listeners with me, and building a community has been what I've been doing over the last 6 years. So more about that as we go on.
So I just want to go and listen to the podcast. I want to just go for a walk.
I'm Esther Newman. I'm the editor of Women's Running magazine and more pertinently the co-host of the Women's Running podcast. We started it in lockdown and it began as an interview podcast with me interviewing runners, so like marathons or whatever. And then I ran out of interviewees and ended up bringing my co-host Holly, who's at the back. She came on. Initially, I was training her, sort of, even though I'm not qualified to do so, for a half marathon. And we quickly discovered that people were more invested in those conversations than they were the interview pieces, because it turns out actually that elite runners are really dull. And me and Hol, we've ended up for the last 4 years. Yeah, so we had a year of the boring interviews, then we've had 4 years of me and Hol whining on about everything. and lots of it not to do with running as well. And in terms of the community aspect, I think we quickly found our stride because we worked out that we are in that happy accident of sitting in the Venn diagram between women and running, and those groups of people want to find a community. So that was quite a happy accident for us. And we developed it from there.
So one of the things, we made a little chat, that Zoom chat before, one of the things that you both mentioned was this idea of inviting people in. When we talk a lot about podcasts, certainly from a commercial point of view, we talk about the idea, okay, well the numbers aren't the same as Facebook, but imagine you have 250 people or 1,000 people all in one space. That's what podcast is. And a community is the same thing, right? How do you get them to come in? How do you get them to knock on the door and join that community?
Apart from bribery, this is Chris Stone earlier talking about belonging. I've always, found so much in nature that has been fulfilling and given me a sense of belonging. And I realised that many other people are yearning for that. So I knew there was, particularly during the pandemic, there were people desperate to get out when they couldn't get out. And that's been maintained. So it's creating a sense that this is a place that's, as I mentioned, is safe, comfortable with me and my guest, or the little team that I've created. Now, I've got almost no resources, so there's almost an illusion there's a team around me, but we do meet together. We do have studio chats every 3 or 4 weeks to go through emails or reviews or things that people have questioned or asked us questions. So there is a place where we put the listeners dead centre of the podcast. So as well as taking them out for walks and always thinking of them just beside me, we do have this forum, a plot chat. Lots of more, a sort of intensive day, but we sit around the table, read out the messages we get, and we'll find that then it's part of the belonging. We value their contributions and invite them to send in their own recordings of nature. So particularly this time of year, February to now, birdsong. Anybody can record birdsong on the phone. I love the writing something. When someone sends me a recording they're writing down, it's heaven. It's really hard to find these days. And so this is almost creates a slight competitive element among listeners to send the most exciting things. I'm quite happy someone just sends in an audio of a tractor. And actually the train's going over here, I might record later as a sort of bit of ambience, because always about it. But they feel they've got a stake, and they've also got to know the floor. So I have Hannah, Jack and Lewis. Jack and Lewis are the producers, and I cunningly get them to talk on the shows, and they charge me slightly less for their work. But they've got to know us, and then we do occasionally, every sort of couple of months, we do a podcast out in the wild together. So with a bit of video, lots of photos, and people get to know us that way. So that's a long way of answering. There's lots of different ways we invite people in and value their content and talk to them directly.
Is that something you do? Do you get people to send them recordings of them running?
No, that'd be horrific. But yeah, I think one of the things that we've done, because I think when we do, one of the reasons why we decided to do a podcast is because the only running podcast at the time, 5 years ago, that I would listen to, and no shade, was Runner's World, which was doing particularly well, but it was very, very male dominant, and it was quite elite, it was good runners, and there's a lot of us that aren't. And so after a while, after we got to our stride, we kind of realised that a lot of people were listening to us, this is anecdotally, like through email and stuff, that they were the runners that didn't think that there was a club for them. and didn't actually necessarily want to join a club because of the fear of coming last. You know, so we've got a lot of people like that. We are club because everyone comes last in our club. And so we after a while we hooked up with Patreon, through Patreon. Through Patreon, they had this thing where you could link in with Discord, and this has been absolutely brilliant for us. So this is a forum, if you don't know it, and it enables the conversation to be much more circular. So all of our patrons can hop on Discord, and then they can talk amongst themselves rather than commenting on social media or like commenting to us or emailing us. And so it just makes the conversation much more kind of well-rounded. And it's great for us because we are active participants on that forum as well. So they like to talk to us, make suggestions, complain occasionally if we're talking about running too much, that sort of thing. But also it means that, I mean, what I was talking to you about this last week, what's been fabulous is that when we've had sponsors, we can see in kind of real time how people are reacting to that sponsorship message. Like, are they buying the thing that's being sponsored? What do they think of the thing that they bought? And the things that we had for the last 6 months, we were sponsored by a training app called Cooper. And everyone was talking about it in Discord. It was so useful because we could use that, go back to the sponsors and say, like, it's really popular, but they want X, Y, Z, or this discount isn't enough. You could go straight back to them, and it was incredibly valuable, commercially speaking, emotionally speaking, partnerships we've had, both us and the training app, but then also to have this Discord platform where we can use that for feedback.
Do you use other platforms, like not just audio, but social media? Or
Yeah, I mostly use Facebook because it's just a useful place to have with people. They can share photos and ask each other questions. And I'd love to have that Patreon inner circle. But it has become a place where we can have a to and fro between the team, myself and listeners, on Facebook groups and strains. But I think there are lots of other ways we could reach out to people. I mean, LinkedIn is quite good sometimes. I find it's a bit more the professional network and gathering guests, but for the sort of reaching those people who do not on LinkedIn. I think Facebook's best for us. But I was also going to say, I really enjoy chemistry to you. I think that's a really important part of the community building, is in your podcast, the sense of it's irreverent, but I felt kind of safe in your company, that I wasn't going to be kind of, because one of the podcasts I've tried is the awkwardness or the lack of passion, or just these elements that you don't get. I think that's just like forgotten sometimes when podcasts are head-on to a brand. And lots of brands that I've worked with, quite often, we must have a podcast, and then you've got to have the vibe and passion. And it won't college person. So
I think that do that work for us so much with Media Voices podcast. Where we had the three of us, quite different personalities in some way, but we really do this together. Actually, I think we're going to do something later on, yeah? It's different, right? One person talking and one-on-one or whatever. It's very different when you get 3 people or 2 people that really get on.
it's really good, and I think our listeners got used to the 3 others ganging up on me, or when I tell the countryside joke, there's just this total silence, and it's pitiful, but and then listeners take pity on me and say, I thought it was quite funny for this.
That's how you build community. You get people to feel sorry for you. I remember you telling me before that people in your community actually get complain if you talk too much about running and not enough about what was on the telly.
It's true. True, that is absolutely true. Which is why we ended up doing a spin-off series a couple of years ago just on the Great British Bake Off. Which you might not think would be an easy fit with running, but turns out very easy fit. You're talking about cake and running. So yeah, we do series that are, we then did extra series that are all about running, so that we can continue to talk about reality TV on the main podcast. So we do that. So I mean, it's a careful balance. Like we did, Paul and I were training for London Marathon this year, and what with that sponsorship as well, it meant that for 5 months of weekly podcasts, we were pretty much just talking about the London Marathon.
I have a question. So, the mini-series and things, would you release it on your main feed or within the community apps?
Good question. I spoke to Acast about it and I said, what should I do? And they said, just release it on the same RSS. So I did. Pleasure. They're usually just sort of 10 episodes long, so they're a bit easier to do. I mean, make them shorter, because our main podcast is like an hour and slim plan, and this is like 20 minutes. It's like, what do I need? How do I eat to kind of fuel my marathon training sort of thing? That's much more practical advice, and so that's what we hope to do. We do maybe 2 a year, which is brilliant for Acast now, actually, especially for people who send our recipes.
Yeah, that's a great spotlight. I know where it comes from. The best podcast spotlight ever. I think there's a serious point there about the chemistry and about, whether it's you or whether it's you, yes, but that's going to be more difficult for you because you and all know each other, have done for years. You get a kind of in and out, right?
Yeah, I have the regular INC every 3 weeks or so. But yeah, but then I do a lot on my own, and I'm talking directly to Chris. So I will go for a walk somewhere. I sort of gentle request to find historic stuff or a rare bird or something like that. And
I want your job.
you'd be very poor. And then just imagine, because essentially Plodcast came out of taking friends for walks, and they'd be bored and senseless, and we wouldn't actually get very far, because you'd be looking for all kind of butterflies, bird songs, silence, whatever. But I knew that they were finally quite interested in knowing a little bit more about it, so I just imagined that they're a group of friends with however many thousand there are, and I think that works. So, but it is also important to have that studio chemistry that we do have. And some guests are brilliant at that. I've now briefed guests. It's really important that they ask me questions. That sounds a weird thing to say, but because it makes people feel more comfortable of having a conversation. The very fact that we're out walking side by side is that we seem to get a bit more open. I get a bit more openness from guests than when I'm used to meeting people across the table with just walking, talking. It's like being in a car. So you've got a bit more, I think chemistry comes from that. And that's, there's not that many podcasts that are recorded outside because logistically it's hell at times. It is not audience.
What's the tech you use for that?
Just a Zoom H5. Or if the producers come along for a special occasion, they're all teched up with pedal mics. But I think it's
again, I love the idea. I love the idea of turning the table down to the guests to ask you questions. I never think of that.
And to think of this as well, because sometimes guests are very nervous and they just have a set. They've written their book, generally guests have either a TV show or a book or something. And they just want to get out these points in time. They're not used to the format. It is my job to make it a bit more relaxed. If I give them a brief beforehand, say. But also, the other thing is, it's really important to point out, to be excited by the wildlife we encounter along the way. Actually, to me, that's much more important. I did interview somebody recently. I won't mention his name. He doesn't know how to say. And we were up on a beautiful bit of downland. and he was telling me this fantastic story about that. And I spotted a Duke of Burgundy butterfly, which is very rare, a very beautiful little lattice butterfly. And I said, Duke of Burgundy, oh! And his foot came stomping right down, didn't hit it. And he was oblivious to the whole.
We should have a Jeopardy morning in the
it's a horrific moment, and I think I switched off for 5 minutes. But again, there was also birds on the back strategies. The wonderful farmer, he's such a fantastic professional. He did ask questions. We were totally engaged along this whole walk with the nature we found. And actually, that's the perfect podcast.
Looking at your Discord channel, does everyone know Discord? I'm not going to try and describe Discord, I just want to get a sense if everyone's okay with it. Yeah? I mean, basically, it's, as I understand it, kind of an old school forum setup. So, Fergus is what people asking on a walk, that they're asking them questions. Do they use Discord to ask you questions?
Yeah, again, I love that as well. I think that kind of, I was just reading something the other day about shoulder-to-shoulder conversations, particularly for men, but also for women who are slightly introverted and don't make eye contact. I don't know if there are any out there. But yes, Discord is an old school forum, and you can put in channels that you want in it, which is really useful. So I started off, and it's very representative of the podcast itself. I started off putting in 5K, 10K, half marathon, ultra, kit, stuff like that. And they were kind of, populated really big. But then when I put in menopause and book club and reality TV and Ask Us Anything and podcast, then it started buzzing off. And podcast specifically, that's when we get active in podcast. It's a bit like, oi, you've spoken about this, what about? And it's lovely, because some people it does give people an opportunity to speak when they wouldn't necessarily speak otherwise. They wouldn't necessarily email us, but they feel able to kind of speak to us directly through Discord and to say either what they think about what we're talking about, or to suggest new topics, or to have arguments amongst themselves. It gives them all that kind of opportunity.
That point about an argument amongst themselves is really interesting. I kind of do some of those membership, which is a membership plan. That's part of Patreon. And what I tried to see was, your practice to your members start knowing you and start talking to each other, because the point with that is there's that snowball thing that pure broadcasting stuff you can catch up later. If there's this conversation going on, then we feel like they're not a member anymore, they're missing out. So it becomes self-sustaining, right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't moderate it at all, unless we're asked to kind of.
That sounds really scary.
Well, yes and no. I think, again, we're benefiting from the kind of people that we have in the Discord forum. So it's women runners. I think women runners are ostracized from so many other spaces that the kind of particular safe space is kind of a bit precious to them. So in terms of things that they will argue about, it's going to be, one example was on the podcast, I bemoaned my shit pace in a half marathon. And I happened to actually say what that pace was, and that then sparked off quite a big chat of like, that's fast for me. So you have to be really careful about. I got very offended about that. I was like, I am allowed to be upset about my pace. It was a little bit. But there's never been, as far as I know, anything nasty. Everyone is very, very supportive. There's lots of showing of their medals on a Monday. There's lots of, I did my first ever 5K, I ran my first ever ultra. There's lots happening on.
What's the
podcast is not sure your name is not horrible. But it's features and advertisements. But I would like this of showing people freedom to peace. There's certain arguments of aging. There are very older people out there. Like very movements, on the Babylon house. I would love to unleash all kinds of feelings about it, but and so when I heard you swearings about this another gosh, we need to speak about some of us. But it's that's that I think I would like in an ideal world, like a little bit more freedom for us as a team to speak more personally. I guess, of course, because that's their right. But as hosts, they don't have quite the same freedom to bear in mind BBC shows. So you're going to go for a walk.
Do you get those arguments coming up on Facebook?
Yes, actually, we do get a lot of posters who want you to engage in, and I'm totally sympathetic about not sympathetic about education, angry about it, I'm sympathetic about those raising the story on Facebook, they're kind of goading me into tackling, making a political statement or something like that, and making me have to be careful about what I even like. And that's painful, because listeners might say, I feel like I know you in the team. They know us by name, and they want to know how we feel. So they can drop hints. And this is what it's
Maybe you're breaking up into...
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
It's not good,
Is that better? Yeah. Sorry, to go back there then. It's just the listeners feel like they know me and the rest of my team, and they want to. They're angry about the state of things, the state of nature. I'm sure they would like me and the team to be a little bit more open and angry about it. I mean, I can express anger about certain things that I know I won't get too much pushback about, but again, it's very careful. Try to be as balanced as possible.
If you're holding back like that, does that make it harder to engage the community, or does it just make it a different community, like the people that only care about the butterflies, don't care about the other stuff?
I think most people are still coming for an escape, a episode of joy, half an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. Gosh, I'm getting strained and long sometimes. I don't know what the right method is, that's probably something I might want to talk about. But I think they're coming for the joy of going on a walk. And maybe, and that's sometimes bad as editor, when you overload the doom and gloom and the stuff we have to do, you can just turn it off. And that seems to be a problem with conservation generally, and as environmental messages that you want to grab people by the pounds. Look at the state of it, but actually that's not going to help. It's taken me 40 years to get to the stage I'm at, and I'm only scratching the outer surface of things. I can't expect people to make that same journey in 2 podcasts.
You've got a different situation, right? I want to say you can wind people up deliberately. That's not really what I mean. But you've got safe spaces, you've got harassment going on, women runners, you've got mental addiction, you've got serious issues. Wow, that's a great thing to watch. Do you lean into them?
It does depend what they are. Yeah, I do feel, obviously we have more freedom than you have with the BBC. But, that said, we work for a publishing company. We can't pin our politics to a flag. You can pin our feminists to a flag, and that's what we do quite a lot. In fact, we've got actually we'll talk about this in the flag unfurling flag. So that we do talk about generously and obviously, but when it comes to kind of politics, we have to be quite cautious. I remember in 19 after Brexit that I did a big piece on travelling to Europe, but without sort of saying, in the podcast, there are so many issues. There is so much to fight for in terms of women and money. And I was told by a boss of ours something along the lines of, we can't put a campaign in every episode, and we can't put a campaign in every issue. And maybe he was right, but actually we can, because we have to, because there is so much to talk about. There are so many women facing so many barriers and so much, and there's just so much. It's upsetting. And we hear about these things all the time. And sometimes we say them up, and we have a podcast which is like, and then the next episode will be like, fake off. But the ones where we have got really cross, people really respond to it, which is lovely, and they respond in a really supportive way. So I love that about our lot.
We're almost out of time, so I'm sad to do. Video, I was on you earlier doing a video podcast. How do you feel about video? Are you doing it? Do you want to do it? I mean, first song, videos first. You work great on Butterfly, you go in the start.
Yeah, for me it's a resource issue at the moment, but also it's so difficult. I'm sort of amazed how many people want to watch a YouTube video of people talking in a studio, and I think there might be perhaps more value walking around showing the countryside, videoing the walk. At the moment we just take little videos while we're out. If we're at quite often I almost take photos because I'm so engaged in the recording the audio and making sure that there's a narrative element there. And yesterday I recorded in Finsbury Park and I had to chase my guests down to the station to take them. So it's just with a bigger team, and many colleagues on bigger podcasts, bigger teams with dedicated video people, and that's possible. So I'm hearing what Chris said about that wider impact on the brand, something I've got to take notice of. But at the moment, I think there's not enough hours in the bin.
Resource is nothing. We record from especially from our bedrooms, from our daughter's bedroom actually. So we are kind of making inroads into just chucking those back on the reduced in the same culture and kind of just use it. And we know that if we were dedicated and we have the time and the resource, that would probably have quite an impact. We just don't have the time. We both have day jobs, basically a side hustle. We literally don't have time. But I would love to do it. Even just seeing a little clip of the host of the Ukraine podcast, it's like, oh, that's good. We don't even do that. So we'd love to.
Thanks so much to both Fergus and Esther for joining us on stage, and apologies again for the audio. We've written up the key learnings from these sessions, which will be live on our website this Tuesday and in our newsletter. You can find both at voices.media. And finally, huge thanks once again to the Podcast Summit sponsors, Crowdfinder Video, who help publishers grow and engage audiences with video podcasts, and Sino, a global leader in data solutions and market research. We'll be back next week with another session from the Publisher Summit. But until then, goodbye.